just for that.
I'll hit record first.
Final cut.
Hit record first, and you're in the mountains too, right? Wow, thanks for doing this on location. At the bottom,
live from Yerevan.
You see chat participants, and that brings it up on your right hand corner. So I'll hit start webinar now. It's like 6:04, and so if you hit attendees, hey everybody. Oh, Jan, what up? What up? And so you'll start to see people like file in, and then we'll get in 5 minutes, and then hello, man, I love your work. It's a coworker, right, from Pixar?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then yeah, and then we'll I love you all, he says. Yeah, everyone. So let us know where you're kind of coming from and what time it is over there. And we'll give people a minute to kind of like file in and everything else, and you know the drill, Los Angeles. And then we'll start like going on this panel. But Ramon from Chicago, hey, New Jersey,
Nice.
right on. Where are you guys all like Los Angelinos?
We're in the Bay Area.
For the most part.
I'm LA.
And Aram is the only one, right?
Narbeh too, right?
No, I am as well. Yeah, so I wasn't sure if you were asking us or the folks in the chat.
Oh, I was asking you guys.
Oh, yes. Angelino, yes. I mean, I've been here since I was 5 years old and kind of raised here in LA in some form or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're split. We're bringing Northern California and Southern California together through this.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. But you guys were in CalArts before those, so right? At some point, you guys were like Angelinos as well, or at least Southern California at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
California love right there.
Zara, you went to CalArts, and Edgar, did you go to CalArts too? And then Paula went to CalArts? You guys all went to CalArts at the same time?
I went to Art Institute, Santa Monica.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, yes. Yeah. I went to the Art Institute of Seattle.
Oh, nice. Very cool.
How was that school for you?
Yeah. It was a good experience. There's so much variety of like what you get to learn and different departments you get to interact with. So it was really cool.
Yeah. Was it a 2-year thing for you as well? Or is it 4-year?
It was 4-year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
London.
I love seeing some of the artists that are participating in our auction in the chat too. Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
So cool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's crazy. So like, I'm sure we'll get into this, but well, I'll ask later. I was just gonna ask like, how long was it in the making? But you know, that's all part of the panel. So yeah. Hey, man, everybody. Hope everyone's doing well. How is the Bay Area doing in terms of like numbers and all that kind of stuff? Just curious. I don't know if you guys know. Oh, numbers in terms of like COVID or like quarantine, COVID, and that kind of stuff.
Oh, I think we're in the red tier now, which is like things are slowly starting to open up. I think I went to a coffee shop and actually let us inside. It was such a weird experience. Like, I haven't been here in a year. It was great.
Wait, you sat inside the coffee shop, Ed?
Yeah.
You two? Wow.
Oh.
Yeah, it was wild. I'm like, I haven't been here in a year.
I was on a conference call for work with like a partner of ours who works out of Florida, and we were just hearing all this like background noise, and we were wondering like what was going on. And he was like, yeah, I'm in a coffee shop, and I was like, wait, you're sitting in a coffee shop like having this meeting right now with like all these people around? You're like, yeah, like people are kind of like social distancing and keeping their masks on, but yeah, we're just sitting and chilling, taking this meeting from a coffee shop. And I was like, wow, I forgot what that was even like. I can't believe that there's like parts of the world that can happen right now, which is awesome. Because in LA, everything's been shut down for the longest time.
Yeah. I think we're the worst, right? We have the worst numbers.
We did. I don't think it's like that anymore, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we can get started now, but thank you guys for coming. And then this will be uploaded to our YouTube like very soon. I wanted to thank you all for like coming out and supporting this cause that starts in 2 days, right? On the 18th.
Right around the
Oh
corner.
man. Oh, wait, 18th?
18th, yeah.
Yep. And so thank you guys for coming on. You know, I've known Zar for a long time, but it's my pleasure to meet everyone else on this panel, Aram, Narbeh, Paula, and Edgar as well. So yeah, no, this is gonna be great. So does someone have a dog? Is that
Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's all right, dude. This is Cash. I have a dog too.
Oh,
That's
cute.
so-
She's all good.
I literally thought it was your dog and you were messing with it.
You could be like one of those villains.
Amazing. Yeah, so I just wanted to kick it off and welcome our guests and Zara, Edgar, Paula, and Aram, and Narbeh. And just wanted to give a really brief rundown of who we're talking to. And then they can sort of like get into, you know, in depth of like their career and their story. But Zar, let's start with you. Zar Galstyan, who is currently a freelance character designer working in animation industry. She was born in Yerevan,
Yep.
Armenia, and immigrated to the U.S. What year was that?
That was in 93. I was
93. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
How old were you back then?
I was 6 years old.
Man, you're young.
A little nugget. Little Zar. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, please.
Zara received her BFA from CalArts and spent the majority of her career working at Pixar Animation Studios, a small mom and pop shop that you guys probably never heard of, and working on such films as Toy Story 3. Was that your first one?
That was my first one. Yeah, I worked on that in the internship that I had done at Pixar.
Okay.
So yeah.
And then after that, Coco, Onward, and then the most recent Turning Red. So thank you for coming, Zara.
Thank you. Well, first of all, Bobby, thank you so much for having us on this panel. Like, I know that, you know, we emailed you and it was just like, you're so like quick and so like, yeah, let's do this thing. And we're just so grateful and so thankful to have, to be a part of this, like your platform and all. We just want to acknowledge all the amazing work that Rise Up is doing. And we're so honored to be here amongst the platform and everything that you've set up. So it's really an honor. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for coming and thank you for taking the time. I might go over to the guy screen left of you, Edgar Karapetyan?
Karapetyan. Yeah.
Karapetyan, yeah.
Yeah.
Who is also a storyboard artist and writer, currently living with you in San Francisco. Maybe you guys might be
We're married.
We just met.
Oh, that's right. Amazing.
No, before this we were joking about like, should we log on with separate computers?
That just felt too weird.
Anyway.
Edgar has been working in the animation industry for over 14 years, including Disney, DreamWorks, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, Illumination, and most recently Pixar, where he worked on Finding Dory, The Good Dinosaur, Cars 3, Toy Story 4, and the recently released Soul. So is that it, man? Is that all you've done with your life?
That's it. It's just a short list.
Amazing. Wow. So TV and film. Shoot.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Mm-hmm.
Crazy. That's awesome. And then so next we have Paula Assadourian, who's a story artist and illustrator from Mexico City. and she received her art degree from CalArts, and she had created award-winning short films in Vancouver and Paris. My goodness.
Yeah.
World trending, dude. Paula's worked for Sony Pictures Animation, DreamWorks TV, and is currently at Pixar Animation Studios. She's worked on Spider-Verse, Soul, and she lives in the Bay Area where she spends her time time dancing. You dance? What kind of dancing? And drawing and meditating.
All kinds of dancing. But I love ballet, but any kind of dancing I love.
Amazing.
Having us, Bobby.
Sorry, what?
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, guys, thank you for coming.
I've also enjoyed mentoring on Rise Up Animation.
Oh,
which was
nice.
super cool
Thank
experience.
you for joining. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you. Aram Yacoubian is a content executive for original animated features at Netflix, which is pretty legit. And Aram was born and raised in Glendale. I didn't know that, man. To parents who immigrated from Lebanon and Egypt. Aram studied business economics at UCLA before joining Netflix, where he's held like various content roles with the ambition of empowering, I love this, empowering underrepresented voices and bringing stories from around the world to the next generation of viewers. So you're doing the Lord's work, man. Thank you. That's awesome. That's right in line with, everything we're trying to do with Rise Up. So, I mean, it's wonderful to have. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you guys, everything that you are doing at Rise Up definitely inspires us. And it's so great to see within this animation community that is certainly so near and dear to all of our hearts, all the panelists and certainly everyone in the audience, for you guys to put together this organization and create a safe space in fostering these conversations and elevating underrepresented voices. It's really awesome to see the animation community like really make take leadership in this space, and a lot of that goes to the great work that you guys are doing at Rise Up. So what I do is just a very small piece of the puzzle, and it's organizations like yours that continue to kind of inspire us in this space that we love. So thank you for having us and all the great work that you've done, and we'll continue to do undoubtedly.
Yeah, we're gonna keep it going, man. Thank you, Ram. Those are very kind words. Narbeh, my man, the last one, but certainly not the least, is a social and digital director at the Pokemon company, right? International, currently? Nice.
That is right. Yeah.
Awesome.
Recently started about a month and a half ago at this point. Yeah.
Oh my God, amazing. Narbeh graduated from UCLA and worked at Nickelodeon in social media marketing and content for more than 10 years, dude.
Yeah, 11 years. Yeah.
Was it hard for you to leave?
It was incredibly difficult. Yeah. It was the easiest thing I've ever done, but also like the most difficult thing at the same time, if that makes any sense at all.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was the right choice. It was time to move on, and it was time to pursue other things, and almost immediately got to get this awesome role at the Pokemon company right afterwards. So
amazing. And I just have to put you out there because you put it on Instagram. Narbeh has aspirations to write his own animated series or feature to one day bring like an underrepresented, I'm going to put it out there, underrepresented Armenian characters and voices into the mainstream. So bravo, man. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the dream. That's why I entered the industry in the first place. So
yes.
Let's see where that goes.
Yes. So do we want to move into the, brass tacks of kind of like, getting more into your stories? Zara and Ed, do you want to kick that off?
Sure. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. Yeah, just I was born in Armenia. My family moved. I don't know if anyone knows too much about the history of Armenia. It's a really small country with a very ancient past. And gosh, part of the reason why we're here today is to kind of just like talk about everything that we as Armenians have like, you know, gone through, continue to go through. It's so like Armenia's stories are so, and history is so interwoven with our like lives now. So yeah, my family, I was born in Armenia. My family came to America when the Soviet Union collapsed. And I was there that last year that like it was really, really tough. No electricity, like people were burning like family photos to stay warm, that sort of thing. I have this memory of my mom playing the piano so me and my sister could dance and stay warm, like during that like last winter where we were there. And then cut to, we come to America and it's just like, it's so different, you know, it was just such a different thing. I loved being introduced to all of the films, animation, Power Rangers. Like I remember like crying once because I had to go to the doctor and miss an episode of the Power Rangers. You know, so my life went from like freezing to death one winter to like crying over Power Rangers. You know, so like that just the position of my childhood. Always loved like art and theater. That was always like a big part of my life. My parents were my dad's a tailor, so he's very creative, and my mom is just like the best cook, and she always like, so creativity was always in my life and always in my family growing up. I learned about animation, just kind of like my path to how I got into animation and to Pixar. I was introduced to CalArts through a summer school program called CISA, which is the California State Summer School for the Arts. And I remember taking that flyer home, reading about it on my bed, like as a teenager, and like, you know, that aha moment where like the clouds part and like, you're like, ah, it was just like this, like I knew what I had to do with my life. Like, it was just like, it felt like the light of God shining down on me, like, this is what you have to do. And I was like, okay, like no problem. It just fit, everything fit together. My love for theater, drawing, animation, all of that. So I went to CISA, I did the summer school program thing, and I was like, I have to go to CalArts. Like that's kind of how I ended up at CalArts. I went to CalArts for 4 years. I got an internship at Pixar out of my third year at CalArts. And I got to work on Toy Story 3. And I went back to school and finished. I graduated and I worked down in LA for a little bit. And then I got the call back from Pixar and I took it. So I went to Pixar and I was there for close to 10 years. Worked on, like you said, a big one was Coco, Onward, a lot of development stuff. You kind of touch a whole bunch of stuff when you're at Pixar too. The most recent one was Turning Red. And yeah, and I left last November just to embark on my own kind of like creative journey. And yeah, that's kind of my story. And then also being here too, this has probably been, being a part of this group of Armenian artists and professionals has probably been some of the most important work I've done up to date, because it's so dear to my heart, and it's just so like, we'll get into the, I guess the details of why Armenia means so much to us as Armenians, as a part of our history, a part of like the oppression that our people have faced and what we have faced and the trials and tribulations and all of that. We'll get into all of that, but I just wanted to say, like, being a part of Animators for Armenia has been one of the most important work I've like ever done in my life. So I'm really honored to be here.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Zara.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I'll take it away. So yeah, I was born in Yerevan, which is the capital of Armenia. My family immigrated to the States when I was 5 years old, and being so young, it was difficult for me in different ways. I remember giving all my toys away to my friends, having to say goodbye, and then moving to the States, to Burbank. it was hard because going to school, you can't interact with people. In like you don't know the language, so it's really hard to even ask the teacher, I need to use the restroom, or just even make friends. So and I grew up with Armenian and like communist cartoons, and so the Russian cartoons I didn't even understand. So I didn't really have much to go off of until like until I started watching Disney films and kind of learned how to speak English through that. And all I had was the universal language of comedy and my drawings. I would draw to communicate, and so that's kind of where it began for me. And then from there, one day, it was a rainy day, I was drawing because I wasn't playing with anybody else, so I would just sit there and draw. And my teacher took the art piece that I had done and submitted it to the art contest, and I ended up winning first place. And from there, my sister got Armenian lessons. I got art school because of that. So they figured, okay, we're gonna put you on this path, and that kind of kept me interested and involved, and I kind of kept with it. And it wasn't until my aha moment was in high school when I went to Burbank High School. So we were fortunate enough to get a lot of donations from different studios, so animation desks and things like that, and sometimes artwork as well. And my teacher one day brought in storyboard panels from the Iron Giant. And that was my aha moment. And that's when I knew this is what I want to do. And I could relate to it so much because I was already used to early on in my life communicating without words, with through drawings. And so from there, I went on to go to Art Institute of Santa Monica. And in my third year, I got a internship at Cartoon Network, where I was able to, it was just awesome to be around the people that do what I love to do. And from there, I kept working hard, staying late nights, looking at storyboards, going to pitches, and worked my way up to production assistant, and then storyboard revisionist, and then eventually a storyboard artist, where I got to work on different TV productions, a lot of outline-based shows, which was great because you get to write and be a part of that process. And then I bounced around everywhere from DreamWorks to Nickelodeon to Illumination, and most recently Pixar. And most recent project I worked on was Soul.
Awesome. Yeah, man, what a journey, what a path.
Yeah.
Aram, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I don't know how I can follow up either Ed or Zar, but to give a little bit about my background, Bobby, as you said, I was born in the States, grew up in Glendale, but to immigrant parents, ethnically Armenian, but much of the Armenian population has been in the diaspora for a good chunk of the last few generations, and so no different than that. My parents long ago, or my parents' families long ago, had immigrated to the Middle East, and through that, my dad was born in Lebanon, my mom was born in Egypt. My dad, when he was 13, there was the civil war in Lebanon, and so he and his family had left Beirut to come to the U.S., and my mom was in Egypt, which had the revolution, and so their family left everything behind, moved to Montreal, and eventually came to California, where they met and got married. And I believe you live in Glendale, Bobby, so you know the rich Armenian community that exists there, which was very much my upbringing. I don't think I learned English until I was 5 or 6. I definitely went to school without knowing a word of English. That cultural preservation was something that was very, very kind of significant and very important. And through that, grew up with stories of our culture, both in terms of, the Armenian folklore and the Armenian history, but even stories of my parents, my grandparents, and really our history. And it was through storytelling that I was able to really kind of understand my culture, my family, kind of where I come from. And as I got older, realized that those stories helped me understand who I am personally and reflected. And it was always a big part of my upbringing. But coming from an immigrant family, being the firstborn boy across all of my cousins and everybody that I knew, I didn't know like literally we knew one person, like our whole family, even though we were in LA, we knew like one person in the entertainment industry, right? And so entertainment, like that wasn't a job in that context. Like my parents came here, so I would be a doctor or a lawyer or a businessman or whatever, with no bad intent. But that's just what we knew. And so for me, that storytelling was always what I thought would be a hobby. And so when I went to UCLA, studied business economics, I would take screenwriting and filmmaking classes on the side, but purely always thinking that would be a hobby. Funny enough, I was thinking about that the other day, and for my screenwriting class, we had to write a script. And this was like 15 or so years ago, right? And I took an Armenian story, and actually, like, without even consciously thinking about it, like I whitewashed it to submit it to the class, right? It was just such a different time, and psychologically, like I just felt like, oh, this is how I can make it relevant to my class, of like, take this, but remove the Armenian cultural elements of it, so other people can kind of connect to that story. And I didn't think much of it at the time. So I went into a career in finance, and actually when I moved over to Netflix, I was in a kind of content and strategy role, specifically where I could take kind of that analytical background and apply it to content. But once I got to Netflix, it was kind of the early days as we were expanding globally, and immediately, like for the first time, the opportunities within entertainment for somebody who was passionate about storytelling like myself was evident and was very clear. And I was lucky to be there at a time of growth, and I had a lot of great mentors that really exposed me to the creative side of the business. And very on was an area that I took a liking and a keen interest to, and wanted to develop my chops. And for the first time, I was like, this thing that is so close to my heart and what I thought was a hobby can actually be a job, which was really cool. And because it was while we were expanding internationally, I was really drawn to the international part of the business. It was where I now kind of that instance that I had at school of having the opportunity to find stories from all over the world and empower those voices and be able to tell them in the most specific, authentic way possible on a global level for a global audience was something that was incredibly empowering and exciting for me. I was always drawn to animation, in part because I think even as a kid, when I was reading the books about our folklore, our mythology, I would see all of these grand, beautifully painted kind of characters, and there was just such a universality that came through that. And so I was always drawn to animation as such a global medium that kind of transcends culture, much in the way that art does. And so I was drawn to that. I started working on international animation, and then through that, really building a focus of finding global homes for those stories. And most recently, have been focused on the feature film side of things after having spent a few years on TV. And actually, this summer, prior to the conflict in October, where we started seeing kind of more Armenian art, actually a non-Armenian artist in the studio had animated an Armenian dancer, just this very small clip. And I saw that, and I truly like immediately broke down and cried, because I never thought I would see something like that. And it was such an eye-opening experience, right? Of I shouldn't have to filter the very specific stories. No one should have to filter their very specific stories, their culture, no matter how displaced the population is, no matter how small the peoples are, no matter how muted a voice feels, that, we have the technology and the global platforms to be able to really kind of elevate that. And even just seeing now, all of the allies that we've had really engage with this initiative, it's really, that whole experience has come full circle and incredibly empowering. And the fact that we can celebrate our unique heritages and defining who we are and the impact that we can make and the footprint that we can have on this industry and beyond is something that is incredibly exciting and empowering.
That's awesome. Yeah, Aram, beautiful, man. Yeah. Goodbye, everybody. Aram just kind of like close up shop. No, I'm just kidding. That's an old joke that I always have. It's getting old.
I almost left the meeting. So good.
That's beautiful. I love this so far. Narbeh, do you wanna go next? And
I mean, how do I follow all that up? Like at this
Dude,
point, I have nothing else left to say.
you're also amazing. So
Yeah, I mean, it's truly like we keep saying this, but it's such an honor to be amongst this group of folks that like share such a passion for this cause, and it's so wonderful and serendipitous and beautiful how we've all been able to come together through our various paths and upbringings.
yep.
You know, I'm also an immigrant myself. Like my family came over here when I was about 5 years old. I was actually born in Tehran, Iran, and going back to what Aram was talking about, the Armenian diaspora is like all over the world. Like we're everywhere in some capacity or another, and we always find each other and we always form little communities. So there is a really big Armenian community in Iran as well, and so that's where my family is essentially originally from. And we came over when I was 5 back in 91, I believe, and very similar to what Ed was describing, like this like culture shock, this idea of like, you know, like you don't speak the language, you don't know how to relate to the kids that you're at such a formative age too, where, you know, like there's so much pressure to conform and there's so much pressure to like act and be a certain way. And I felt all of that, but I think that the thing that was like my saving grace was really cartoons. Like I really found a home in animation as a very young child, just like watching everything and anything that I could to learn as much about this new home that I had for myself, right? Like learning the language, learning the colloquialisms, the different cultural nuances, and even slang in some instances too. Like I just remember, I think, you know, when I first got to America, like one of the shows that I was absolutely obsessed with was like Captain Planet, and it was like that was like my like view of like what the world was like, right? Like seeing the world through the Captain Planet lens. And we look back on it now. I've seen a few clips. I'm like, this show didn't necessarily age as well, but it was still pretty revolutionary at the time. But that and Power Rangers, obviously, like, you know, I felt what Zara was talking about. I was like obsessed with that, and all these forms of entertainment were really like formative for me, and they shaped you know, who I essentially aspired to be, the characters that I saw. But the one thing that always, you know, like I look back on, I was like, I never really saw myself in any of those characters, right? Like there was always this like lacking representation for even Middle Eastern characters as well. Like the best we got was Aladdin, essentially. Like that was like it in terms of what made it to the mainstream, or that was readily available to us. And so, you know, growing up, I was always thinking about how like, oh man, I really would want to see like myself in like these shows, but I didn't really know that because I was so young. And I remember I've always been somebody that's like written stories or like, you know, jotted down concepts and imagined what, like, if I could tell a story, like what would it look like and what would it sound like and how would it read, and what kind of cultural components that I would bring into it so that I could feel like I'm represented in that space. And but I never, like to Aram's point, like I never knew that a job in animation or a job in entertainment was possible, or that it even existed at all, for like the better part of my life. Because I mean, we were in a very insular like community. Like I grew up in Glendale and Burbank as well. It's like everybody just kind of like focused on what they knew, and I needed to become a doctor or a lawyer. So, you know, ultimately I went to UCLA, and I was studying global studies and political science, and I was going to go to law school and do that whole thing. But I think what changed my life was when I was in high school, actually. I had the opportunity. I went to Burbank High as well for the first 2 years. Ed, we totally missed each other probably, but I had the opportunity to do a job shadowing program, and my placement was at the Nickelodeon animation studio. And so here I am, this like young kid who has like no idea how any of this stuff works. And I like walk into the Nickelodeon animation studio, and my mind is just like absolutely blown as that this place exists. Like this like immigrant kid that has no concept of like the industry whatsoever, being exposed to like all these productions that were going on at that time. I like explicitly remember walking into the Invader Zim area that was happening at that time, or that was in production at that time, and like I saw like Jonan Vasquez like walk by with his like trench coat on and his like all his punk jewelry on there, and I didn't know who that was, but like everybody else around me did know for some reason. So that left a really lasting impression on me. And like even through college, I was just like, you know, it was a hobby of mine to be writing stories, but I was never really pursuing it in any way, like real shape or form. And I had like this one chance in college at UCLA to take this film class, and it was just like a world, like global cinema or world cinema. And I was just sitting there like watching all these incredible films from around the world, and like for the first time seeing representation in these films where like they were very openly and clearly and boldly showing off their culture and their language and like their way of life in a very special way, like in this medium that traditionally for me had been, you know, very much like American for the longest time. Like that's all I'd been exposed to. Mm-hmm. So to see that really did get my like my wheels turning. And then after I had graduated, it was like time to go to law school, right? Like the big culmination of what I was supposed to do. And luckily, I was able to score. I went to community college, and I was able to score. Sorry, I should backtrack. After I graduated, I couldn't find a job because it was 2008 and it was a recession, and so like there was you know all this stuff going on, and I had to. I was told explicitly that I needed an like internship experience. Again, no idea that that was a thing that I needed to do. So luckily, it was still at the time at that time we were still able to take internships or get internships after you had graduated. So I went back to community college, signed up for an internship class, and was somehow, by some miracle, able to actually land an internship with Nickelodeon again, which I like jumped on immediately because I'd remembered like that experience of me in high school visiting that studio and how wonderful it was. I was like, maybe I can like actually get a job there. And so I did, and I was an intern on Dora the Explorer. And from there, I mean, I was exposed to so much in that experience, throughout that experience. And from there, I was able to immediately get hired right afterwards. I got into onto the special events team, did that for a few years, and then the opportunity came up to start up the social media team at Nickelodeon. So I was able to jump on that, and I was always drawn to the content side of the business, and so I always wanted to stay as close to that as possible. But I didn't have that traditional background, right? Like this, I wasn't working on a production, or I wasn't necessarily an artist that could get a job there, or like an established writer that can get a job there. And so I was like trying to be by proxy as close to the content as I could be. And I found that through the marketing lens, or the marketing line of business. And so through that, long story short, here we are like 11 and a half years later. And I'm able to like have like a much better understanding of how this industry works, and a much better understanding of the needs that exist within it, like the needs for representation, the needs for inclusion, the needs for these minority stories and underrepresented voices to actually rise to the top, so that we can actually create some interesting content that appeals to audiences as well. And that's when I, you know, like got connected with these folks, which we'll talk more about later. And here we are today. I'm gonna wrap my story up there.
No, that's great. I love that story. Ooh, take a break. Go off into the mountains a little bit. Take a break. Paula.
I want Paula to talk too. Yes,
Paula,
go for it.
You're up.
Yay! All right. Well, yeah, it's so exciting to be here. It's like the culmination week of something we've been in the works since last year. So it's so exciting that we're all here. We can share stories. And with the auctioning happening on this Thursday, so on 2 days. And just to give a little bit about my background, I'm so excited to finally meet more Armenians, because I'm from Mexico. I mean, I grew up in Mexico City, well, more specifically in Cuernavaca, which is an hour away. And, I was always a kid with an odd last name that no one knows how to pronounce. And I always knew from my dad that, I was Armenian, and that was something very special and something to be proud of. And he always shared that with us, but I never had like that direct experience. That is so cool to hear, like Aram and Narbeh, and Zara, and all of you like born in Yerevan or going to the Armenian school. So I'm so just proud to be amongst us, amongst like all of you. And so, but I'm like an interesting like product of like from both sides of my family. There's it's refugees and genocides on both sides, because on my mom's side, my grandma was living in Hungary as a Jewish woman, and their family had to flee, and eventually through many trials and tribulations arrived in Mexico, of all places. And that's how my maternal grandma met my Mexican grandpa. And then on my dad's side, we had the Armenian genocide. And how my dad even arrived in Mexico is also a story in itself, and that was the big inspiration for my art piece for this auction, because both my grandparents had to leave Armenia, and they arrived in Argentina, and they had 10 kids and the whole family. And then in the 70s there was a military coup in Argentina, and my father, who grew up a communist and who was the organizer at the university, and who was a historian and from economical theory, and and just like a fighter for workers' rights and justice, he got targeted by the military, and he was on the list of people who were gonna kill. So my dad had to leave Argentina in the 70s, and as a university professor, landed a job in Mexico. But so he, who came from a family of exiles, had to exile in his own generation. And so what happened is that he grew up, I grew up with him as my dad, but he was so removed from his whole family in Argentina. So I was kind of in this like small bubble, and my experience of what is an Armenian was just like looking at my dad, who's a little older, so he's now like 85, but so he, just the way he kept the house and the beautiful plants and the cooking and the paintings, and like that pride that really he was so proud of being Armenian. And so I grew up with that like art influence, and just that kind of awareness that, wow, we're survivors, like from my grandma's maternal side and from my paternal side. So I didn't know that I wanted to make art, or that was possible. Like, I went to school with people who went to art high school, and all of these like amazing like privileges of being in this country where entertainment is like such a big source of like income. But for being from Mexico, it just took me a little longer to arrive. But when I found out I wanted to do animation, I went and I took a 1-year course in Vancouver. And then I heard about CalArts, and so I applied. And on my 3rd year, I did an exchange program in Gobelin in Paris. And slowly made my way with all my international friends, fighting all the like visa obstacles and all of those like difficult things, like being in like dealing with immigration stuff. But we're like such a tight family, and we help each other, and it's really cool. And yeah, after graduating from CalArts, I got an internship at Sony Pictures, and I got to work on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which was so cool as a story artist. And from there, I worked at DreamWorks TV for a little bit. And then I got a call back from Pixar, which has always been, my dream studio. just kind of like the heart that they put into their films. And so I've been there for 3 years now. And I worked on Soul and lately on Turning Red, which is a really cool movie that's coming out. And when, during the whole pandemic and things, were so difficult. And then on top of everything, we started, just like hearing all these things happening in Armenia with the war that broke out again. And I always was aware, like Maddie Sharafian, she's like my classmate since first year at CalArts. And I know we're like, yeah, we're Armenian. And, of course, Zar.
Oh, she's here. Hi, man.
Hi, man. And Zar, who I always like admire so much, like such a fan. And I was like, so cool, like there's these Armenian ladies. And then when we were all kind of trying to raise awareness on social media when the war broke out, and just feeling so powerless and so frustrated, I just kept seeing like how Zar was like just fighting, like she was like making art, she was doing auctions, she was like just like there was like a fire in her. And I was just like, man, I need to like support that. Like I don't know, like I was like, we need to kind of jump and just kind of keep that going. So I like remember texting like Maddie and Zar, like, guys, like let's gather forces, let's make like a freaking amazing auction. And then like literally, like I swear, like that day or like a couple days later, I like check my like like the DMs are not really in your main box yet. And I see like Aram and he was like, oh yeah, I'm an executive from Netflix. And I'm like, I want to do something for for Armenia. And I don't know what I want to do, but I like your art. Do you want to join forces? And I was like, wow, that's like exactly what we were just talking about. So we kind of like got like a Zoom together, and then Aram like brought in like Narbeh, who's been like the master like brain behind like so many of the things we're doing. And so kind of this is like a little bit of the story of how here we are, and it's been so cool to be among like with you guys working on this.
Paula, thank you so much. I mean, even to talk about that, I mean, we can't talk about like what's happening now without talking about a little bit about like what happened in the past. So, I mean, like, I'm wondering if we can talk just a little bit about the context surrounding, Armenia's like history, like in this last century, because it's a crazy situation. And I don't know if any like Edgar and Zara, did you want to kick that off or talk about that?
Sure. And anyone who wants to jump in with any sort of like context.
Yes, for sure. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know, Aram, would you want to talk about this? I feel like you would know. I feel like you have more of like a academic point of view.
I mean, let's all do it together. But like just to tee it up, Armenia has faced a very, very long history of conflict and adversity. For those of you guys that don't know where Armenia is, it's in the Caucasus, so just kind of between the Middle East and Europe and the rest of Asia. And within that region, it's been a long history of geopolitical struggles. Armenia has been an ethnic minority, has been a religious minority in a history, in an area that's had a long history of conflict predicated on both of those things, and has had a long history of persecution because of that, as I think obviously many minorities through the history of time have had. And I think that really came to a head initially starting within as part of the Ottoman Empire in the late 1800s, and then ultimately as part of the Armenian genocide in 1915, at which point 1.5 million Armenians were massacred, and many more were displaced. And through that displacement that not only happened in 1915, but through the 1800s as well, essentially what was created is an even more significant minority of Armenians, not only the folks living in that region, but like many of our families that we spoke to, whether it's in Iran or Lebanon or Egypt or really kind of throughout the world. So kind of a long history of that kind of othered minority refugee kind of status. And post genocide, obviously a few years after, Armenia was able to gain an independence, but very shortly after that independence was the formation of the Soviet Union. So then again, after kind of a 3-year window of what seemed like a new chapter after what had been the most devastating and darkest part of our history, and I think it would be of many folks' history, was another very long kind of difficult period of time, much of which we continue to feel the impact of on economic, social, political, cultural identity. The list goes on many levels. Like, I mean, I literally grew up, like, our coffee table book when I was a kid was like photos from the genocide. Like it was photos of kids being marched out of their homes. And that sounds bleak, but frankly, as Paula said, it's part of our identity is that survivorship, and we can't separate it from who we are. And the reason it's so important to recall that and to never forget or ignore that is because of the fear of it happening again. And despite that being such like a wild kind of like notion, right? I think in the events in October, it was like a holy shit moment for so many of us of like growing up in this generation. It's like, okay, I guess like in 1915 when there was like no social media and it was like just, you know, around World War I where like political and international tensions were so high, something like that should not happen, but I guess it could happen. But nothing like that could potentially happen in 2020, right? In 2021, especially when there's been a history of this. Like people will get in, you know, we'll stop that. And with the war that happened in starting October, like the scars had not even begun to heal, and for the Armenian population really around the world, but especially the folks directly in living in Artsakh, in the region where the conflict happened, was like a really kind of dark reality and what felt like the continuation of an ongoing genocide, right? Like the genocide is, by the way, like recognized in many countries around the world, 49 states in the United States, but not by the federal government, not by Turkey. And so through not unanimously acknowledging that happened, it clearly creates a path for the continuation of genocide and all of the social and economic and geopolitical consequences that have come from it, that has put Armenia in a much more difficult position to prevent that from happening again while other countries around us have advanced, is really, I think, what we feel like is this a continuation of like what's been a very dark history, and why we feel so we feel the responsibility and the need to say this time has to be different. We have to connect in a way that our ancestors may not have been able to do, and fight hate with love, fight darkness with art. I'm sorry, guys, I rambled on. I said I would leave more, but I probably jumped through. Please jump into like any parts of history.
That was perfect, Aram. Thank you for summarizing it for us. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think what happened with like what Aram was talking about with the war that broke out last year. I mean, that feels like far away, but it's only a few months away, really. Not a few months, but you know, in October. You know, we've been seeing, you know, a part of like our identities too is trying to uphold and protect that part of us, that ancient part that has like the best parts of our cultural identity, you know. And for us, it was just so like gnarly and so heartbreaking to see one, like, you know, our ancient ancestral lands, like us being told that that's not yours. That church isn't Armenian, but the inscriptions on it and everything has like our identity all over it. So it's just this weird dichotomy of like us trying to hold on to our identity, to preserve it, because that's part of like a part of genocide too. It's not just killing the people. It's erasing the culture, erasing that part that like is so interwoven with our hearts. You know, it's in our blood. It's our DNA. So it's just been so gnarly to like hear about the history of it. You know, you feel the history. I know my family's story with the genocide and how they survived, and that story is like in itself, it's like it's crazy. And then to relive this whole thing over again, to look at like photos of our ancient churches being bombed, you know, like it's just been like so. And that part of it too is like, that's the art part, that's the part where like you create from, you know, like that's the part where ancestors have created such a beautiful like historical thing that's been preserved for so long. And to see that like on this thin like being threatened, you know, on this thin line, like being threatened, it's been just so healing coming from that understanding, and also creating art to heal that, to be like we're here to have our Armenian voices in this industry come together, and to also have like the allies come together with us and take like I felt like, I don't know, there's something just very like spiritual and something just so heart driven about us creating art with an intention to combat those things that are happening, that are so dark in the world, that a group of people refuses and denies. And for us to be like, we're gonna keep creating regardless of what is happening, you know? And that's where we're all trying to align ourselves and our hearts. And as cheesy as it sounds, it's like we're at a point now in time in history as human beings where we have to align ourselves with our intentions and align our lives with what we believe in, because these things like looking at all those young, like during this war, and there's like a bunch of politics and everything back, but just the brass tacks of it, like there's like 3 million am I right? 3 million Armenians in Armenia?
Yep.
Yeah. And that's a small amount. And for someone who like, and granted, we have a diaspora that's bigger than that, but seeing the effects of a genocide where 1.5 million of Armenians have been just eradicated, right? Like 10,000 18 to 21-year-old boys, like that is, we take that as a genocide. There's a whole line of that like we lost, you know? So it's really tough. It's really tough, but you know, and all those wounds have been just like slashed open for us. And that's what every single Armenian that you know of that has an IAN last name or whatever, that's the context that in which we're living our lives on top of this like global pandemic that's happening. But we're here to heal from that, you know, because like, I don't know about anyone else, but I'm rambling on and I apologize, but like the buck stops here. Like we're not going to take any more of that sort of oppression and that sort of pain, because it's just too much. So with that said, it's been so healing to come together with this group of people. Like that's what, I'm sorry. That's what this auction means to us, you know. It's been very hard and very healing. That's why I said like, this has been some of the most important work I've done. So, sorry, that's like my rant for this time.
Yeah, it's been, just to add to that a little bit, it's been so amazing to see everybody coming together the way they have, and the support we've seen. And, you know, it makes you feel so insignificant. It's something that's so far away. It's something that is so close to your heart, but is happening, you know, halfway around the world. And to not feel heard, or to feel powerless, and then to feel like you have a purpose, and finding this amazing community of people, Armenian and non-Armenian, just friends, colleagues, our fellow artists, just coming together has been the most powerful thing, and has been the most healing thing. And I think it's so beautiful to use art in such a meaningful way, because it's so powerful. So yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Zara. Or go ahead, Paula. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that that's why we picked the theme of the feeling of home, because knowing that these artists were going to create art with intention, as Zara said, and just kind of each of them in their own unique way. You know, so many diverse artists from different backgrounds, and just like picturing each of them kind of in front of their piece of paper, and like connecting to whatever home means to them, and knowing that each of us have such a story, right? And in the world, there's been such a history of just, you know, conflict and war, and people who have to go from one place to another, and we all come from like different legacies, and but then we connect to what home means to us, and just kind of everyone kind of getting in touch with like inner center, and from there creating something that becomes like this tangible piece that then, you know, we are gonna donate all the proceeds from like 100% to children in Armenia. And just kind of that alchemy is so special. And yeah, and we're so thankful for all the artists. And yeah, you can see it in the like gallery of the all the pieces. They're all so different, so unique, but they do give that like essential feeling of home in all the different shapes and forms.
Yeah.
I felt like I took it to such a weird, like, dark place. I hope we could come back from this, you guys.
No, awesome.
Oh, you're perfect.
That was wonderful. You encapsulate a lot of our emotions perfectly, Zara, so do not apologize. I just wanted to add to that, like, I think what's really special about this moment in time is, you know, we live in a world where we're all so much more interconnected than ever before, obviously through technology and social media. And I think that one thing that stands out as like the most beautiful thing about this whole experience of planning this auction for me has been, you know, the connections that I've been able to build and create with my fellow Armenians, as well as allies who essentially align themselves with, you know, standing up to injustice and wanting to do something about this horrible thing that's happening, has just been absolutely beautiful. And I love that. I like, maybe 2 years ago, I had no idea about any other Armenians in the industry, except for maybe like a handful of them that had somehow passed through the walls of Nickelodeon at one point or another. And here I am, not only connected and have been working like as closely with this amazing group right here for the last few months, like literally meeting maybe twice a week, 3 times a week at times. But also like you know, it gave us an opportunity to really see who else is out there, like who else is like us, like who else is like working in this industry, and to be able to bring them into the fold and be like, come, like, let's make something beautiful together. Let's make art. Let's, you know, actually, practice activism through art, and to see the way that the community has responded to it has just been so wonderful, and it's better than anything we could have ever asked for. Like the amount of artists that started to come not only the ones that we reached out to, but the ones that like found the page somehow were like, hey, I want to be a part of this. Like, I need to be a part of this. And that was absolutely like beautiful. Like that you can't necessarily say that could have happened maybe 10 years ago or even 20 years ago. Like in this moment in time, like it was a very special serendipitous moment where like we were able to come together for this cause and like form a community. And as a result, that community is now like stronger than ever in bringing awareness and essentially fighting against the injustices that we were all just sharing about.
And that's such a huge point. Like for the I know some of our artists are either from Glendale or the area or familiar with it. Like those of you that are like know how proud Armenians are of being Armenian. Like they'll let you know they're Armenian. They're very open and clear about it. And it's I've gotten the question of like why, right? Like why is that such a big part? Why do you wear it so proudly on your chest? And I think the reality is, like, for example, when the war broke out in October, like it was a really big issue, right? Like thousands of people are dying. There's war crimes left and right. It's over 100,000 refugees. And like on an international scale, like literally no one did anything, right? Like there was like some quotes from like governments, but there's like in 2020, there's like a war happening, right? Like right in front of everybody's eyes, and there is like zero international intervention. And so you can't help but to feel in that moment like shit, like are we alone like in this? Like are we truly alone in this? And feeling that way and feeling, for me, like the worst feeling that you can feel when you're going through something like that is alone and heard, because you feel like you don't matter, right? Like you feel like this race could disappear from the world, and people will kind of move on and it'll be fine. You feel incredibly alone and isolated. And so through this experience, to see, and of course, like non-Armenian friends and allies through that all kind of reached out and were an incredible kind of support system. But through this experience, for so many incredibly talented people who are so busy, who have so much going on, who are battling so many things that we're battling on top of like COVID and the work challenges and family challenges and all of that, to spend so much time so selflessly on supporting our cause. Like it's not just the piece of art, it's not just like the money that we'll gain, like those things are super important, but like that like allyship is like it's something that is like beyond something that I can describe the thanks for. Like it truly, I think, shapes like who we are and how we can walk proudly in this society, knowing that we have a home, right? Like knowing that we are accepted and supported and will be advocated for by such an incredible, kind, generous, talented group of people. And so with many of the folks that are like listening that have contributed their work and their time, like I could not be more thankful on so many levels and layers. So I just needed to kind of say that and celebrate that.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you, Aram. We're approaching the, we're past the hour mark, but like if we want to move forward to the moving forward aspect of it, what do you guys think in terms of like talking about kind of like how we can sort of create art to sort of like turn it and make a difference in terms of like everything, what can we do as artists, like everything that's going on in the world, and make a positive impact on what we can do with our art. So Zar, Edgar, what do you guys think?
With like the purpose of art in regards to this sort of thing, was that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, like for me, just anything where, I don't know, like with art that I create, it's always like an invitation to go inward, creating something like that, like that's powerful stuff. That's potent magic, like just with the energy, like I'm a big proponent of like spirituality and that sort of thing, and just setting the intention. If this sounds too woo-woo, I apologize, but like that's kind of like where I approach like the art that I create with from. Just even like doing something with the intention of like anyone who supports our auction or walks away with a piece or something, I hope that like whenever they look upon it, if it's hanging on their wall or wherever it is in their home and in their lives, like may they always be reminded how generous they are, how kind they are, how they came to our aid at a time where it was really hard, you know? Like that's kind of the power of art, I feel, is what it does to the individual. What alchemy it brings, like what Paula was saying, like the alchemy, what alchemy it brings into their lives. And I hope the intention of our auction is whoever's lucky enough to like get one of these like amazing pieces that these artists have created with the intention of helping Armenia and helping the people of Artsakh. May they be reminded of their generosity, their kindness, and that they were brave enough during this time when the information war was against them, where the credible news sources didn't report, where the bots and stuff were all over the place and made people look away, to not look there, that denial agenda. They were the ones that didn't do that. And that's fucking powerful. Pardon my French. That's powerful. That's the stuff that's gonna get this planet like to heal from these wounds that are really, really deep, you know? And I hope that this auction and the art that everyone created and contributed sets us on a path to heal from all of that. As grand as it may sound, that's kind of where I see all of this from. That's the lens that I see it from. And yeah, I think art is very powerful. It's like creation, like we're creating something from nothing, our experiences, our storytelling, like all of that. And it's like it's a complete path to our hearts. You know, it's a direct path, because like you empathize, you walk through someone else's shoes, like look at the films and what they do, you know. And like the reason why we all got into animation was because like for me, like I watched The Lion King as a child, and my heart broke to a million pieces when Mufasa died. Like it was an animated lion, it doesn't exist, right, in the world, but it messed me up, right? So it's powerful. It's powerful stuff. And yeah, that's kind of like, yeah.
Just to add to that, you know, moving to immigrating here when I was really young, I always felt like I had one foot here and one foot, like I was Armenian but American at the same time. I was always trying to like conform and fit in and find a common ground with my American friends. And so I never really, it wasn't until later on I realized I never really felt like I belonged to either one as a result of that. And just speaking to the artists out there, I think it's so important, and something I learned during my time at Pixar was how important it is for you to really find your voice and really be genuine with yourself and what you put out there. Because as much as you might think it's not something people want to hear or can relate with, that is actually the very thing that most people can probably relate to. Whether you're creating art or you know, whatever it is, and even with this whole conflict, to see how many people are out there that share or can sympathize and understand what you're going through. And art is so powerful, and I think it's so important to have that, to find that genuine voice inside. And I didn't get a chance to go back to Armenia until 2018, where I went to Artsakh, which is now, I was fortunate enough to see a lot of places that have been bombed and are no longer there, and got to connect with that side of myself. And as a storyteller, like that's been so amazing to experience and go through. So just wanted to add that as well.
Awesome. Amazing. Paula, Narbeh, Aram, coming up on like an hour. But how are you guys feeling? Paula, what do you think?
Feeling so inspired. I love that. I love everything you guys are saying. I think as we wrap up, it'd be great to touch upon a little bit of the organization we're donating to, so folks can.
Yes. Yep. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we're donating to the Children of Armenia Fund, and we all agreed on this nonprofit, which is great, and it works with kids in the rural areas of Armenia. But now, more specifically, it's been helping with all the like COVID-19 things and with the refugees. So it's. Do you guys want to add to co-op?
Yeah, I can add a little bit to it. I think what drew us to co-op is their kind of focus had been establishing and investing. And so much of Armenia, about like a third of the population, if not more, is concentrated in the capital where Zara and Edgar were born. But co-op has really been investing in building kind of smart communities and hubs in more of the rural communities that are really focused on education and technology. So they've been doing inspiring work for a long time and investing in the children there so that they have equal access to the web and to education and all of these things. And through post-war, as Paula was saying, with again, there was about over 100,000, about 150,000 Armenians living in Artsakh that were all displaced. Over 100,000 went to kind of mainland Armenia, if you will. That's many children taken out of their homes, taken out of their schools, that have no homes to return to, and obviously have huge, significant obstacles in reintegration. Sad to say, no longer have fathers or older brothers or their family members that were lost on the front lines. And so for us, coming from this animation business where many of the people that we speak to are inspiring that next generation of kids, wanting to really help with that reintegration was a priority of ours, and providing them kind of comfort and hope and optimism was a priority for ours. And so with co-op really focusing their efforts over the last few months with helping those children refugees, specifically in these rural towns and in these kind of smart centers that they're building, felt like a very natural fit and right at the crossroads of philanthropy, technology, and art, and felt like the natural fit. And we're really excited to be partnering with them on this and hope to be partnering with them long after the auction and potentially helping out with the schools and the different programs that they have, whether it's an animation department that they want to set up, if they're looking for mentors around the world from the animation industry. Hopefully it's a long partnership and we can make many years and a whole generation's worth of impact through what we view as just the first seed in our kind of ambitions with this group.
Yeah, I hope so. They're a great organization. They seem great. Yeah, amazing. But to be, respectful of your guys' time, is there anything that you guys want to say lastly about the auction that starts on the 18th? Or did we cover it all?
We covered a lot of it. I'll just jump in because I actually saw a question in the Q&A from Pedro, asking what's the best way to help us promote the auction. So primarily we've been operating on Instagram at this moment. If you have seen the account, I'm sure that's how a lot of folks found their way here, or you saw Rise Up's tag of the page. So it's at Animators for Armenia. So this Thursday, the auction goes live, and it's actually a separate website where we will be linking to in our bio. So people can go there and essentially see the artwork now. and get ready to bid as they see fit. So sharing that link is really helpful. We have a link tree in our bio currently that has that link in it as well. So you can add that to your bio and just raise awareness in that way. There's a lot of really great resources, including more information on Children of Armenia Fund, as well as just background history, some of the stuff that we touched upon tonight too, just like in written form for people to read more about it if they like. So that link tree, sharing that is really wonderful. As you see art that speaks to you, things that, you know, inspire you, feel free to share them to your stories. You know, tag the account in posts as well to raise awareness in your own circles. And then, you know, we also have an email mailing list too that we've kind of been using to communicate with some of our closest friends and family members, as well as folks that have been interested in it. So if you want to be added to that, you can always just DM us on Instagram and we can get you added to that mailing list too. That's an easy forward to your own networks too that might not be on Instagram or might not be seeing your Instagram stories. Am I missing anything, team? Is there any other ways to get the word out? There's a lot.
And just to say, hopefully folks can find pieces that they love and bid on some of these pieces, but also within the website where we're hosting the auction, you have the ability to donate directly to co-op as well. So there's multiple ways to not only promote, but to help support this initiative.
Yep. Yeah, I saw that. Sounds great. Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. How's everyone feeling? You guys all right?
Yeah,
This is amazing. Thank you so much for doing it. And we couldn't be more thankful at Rise Up Animation. So, you know, you have allies in us and everybody. And good luck with everything. I'll be keeping tabs on the live auction. But I have my eye on one piece, but I won't tell you what it is.
Ooh.
Just to be mysterious.
Thanks so much for hosting us, Bobby. And again,
Yes, thank you.
all the great work Rise Up does. Today you were introduced to Armenian time, which is also, we will always start late and run late. So that was an introduction to that.
It's all good.
Thank you for putting
Thank you everyone for doing this, and you know, best of luck to all of us this week. You know, we're with you guys. So thank you guys for taking the time. So
Thank you. And thank you to all the artists that are listening that have contributed their work. We could not be more grateful.
Yeah, thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you so much, everyone.
awesome. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Take care. Have a great night. Have a great rest of your week. And we'll be in touch. And see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.